and welcome to a new project. Today I want to continue working on my Nesta Valkyrie outfit. I've made her shirt and pants in my previous video, but today I'm working on the final piece of that outfit, which is a underbust corset. Now, to make this corset, I am using my trusty Stays and Corsets by Mandy Barrington. I love this book and I am on a mission to complete every corset in both this book and the second book. So this will be my third design from this book. The corset I want to do is the 1890s riding corset. I have actually drafted up the pattern already. This was probably the easiest one I've done so far, I guess because it's an underbust one. You don't have to account for the curves of the bust and it doesn't go over the hips. So I am ready to cut it out. So this is the fabric that I want to use for this, and I think it is such cool fabric. It is actually a lycra, so it's stretchy, but I do have some black coutil that I will back it in, and coutil is the sturdiest fabric out there. It's pretty much made for making corsets, so once this is backed onto this, it won't stretch anymore. But I just think this fabric, I found it in the op shop, so I've only got a small section of it and I don't know where to get more, but it's so cool. I really like how this fabric has kind of got that molten beaten metal look. To me, that's a nod to the part in her book where Nesta forges weapons. So what better fabric to make her corset out of? All my pieces now are cut out, so I just need to put my layers together before I can actually put seams together. So these middle pieces all just have one layer of coutil and one layer of the stretch fabric, but the front and back pieces have an interfacing layer because they get constructed slightly differently than all these middle pieces. So I'm going to start with my middle pieces because they are the simplest. The two layers just get basted together to start with. I've now basted together all my middle pieces, so they're ready to go. For my front and back pieces, the first thing I'm going to do is iron the interfacing onto the stretch fabric. Now my outer fabric is interfaced and it's no longer stretchy. I'm going to stitch a lining piece and an outer piece together at the center back seam, turn them and press that, and that's my back seam done. For the front, I'm going to insert the busk, so I'm going to stitch the center front seam of the lining and outer again, but leave some gaps where the busk is going to poke through. So that's my center front prepared and ready to be stitched to the rest of the panels, and my center back with just their back seam stitched. So now with these pieces together and ready to go, all my pieces are set up and ready to actually construct this thing. And to do that, I'm going to do my seams for these middle pieces inside out, and then I'll trim some of the allowance and the rest, fold the rest of it over and fell those seams down. Doing it this way will give a bit of structure without adding more boning. This corset is meant to be a lightly boned sports corset in a way, so doing the seams like that will give a little bit more stability, like they sort of create a little channel of their own, but they're not obviously a steel bone, so it's just a little bit of structure without too much. I will obviously then add boning probably on either side of each seam and nothing in like the middle bits, but that will be enough to create some support throughout the whole corset. That's the idea anyway. I don't know if that will translate into reality, but that's what I'm thinking. So let's start putting this together. I've got the two halves all stitched together now, but I haven't finished the seams. I still need to trim one side and fell it down, but I wanted to check the fit first. So I'm going to put the grommets into the back piece so that I can lace it up and check that it fits. It should, because obviously I made the block off my measurements, but there's always a little tweak that could make something fit better. it is done up and I've laced it. It does actually lace all the way closed, which I typically like to have about an inch in my back gap for a bit of lacing ease and to adjust to body changes. But for this one, I do actually think I want it to close to meet in the back like it is now. However, at the moment it is actually, I think, a little bit big. Not by much, but I think if I were to take in this side seam, because these two are the sort of the bigger panels out of the whole corset. So if I took in each side seam by like 6 mil, and maybe this front one, just because there is a bit of that room in the top there. If I took in that, maybe not even all the way down, just a little bit at the top, I think that would get me still closed in the back, but actually firm with a bit of support through the rest of it. So let's do that. And then I can finish all these edges. I have adjusted the fit and I've unpicked the old stitching so I can open out the seams. Now I'm going to trim down 3 of the layers and then keep 1 layer longer so I can fold it over and fell the seam. Seams are all fell down now, so the inside and the outside has a nice neat finish. Next thing I need to do is put the boning channels in. So I've already got the 2 center back ones on either side of the grommets. Those ones I'm going to use a slightly heavier 8mm boning in, but for the rest I'm just going to use some 6mm, and I think I'll just do 1 on either side of each seam. Got all the boning channels sewn in now. Oh, how cool does this fabric look in the light? I love it so much. But before I put any boning actually in, I want to finish the top edge with some binding. It's a lot easier to get the binding on through the machine before there's any boning in here, and also it then gives me a stopping point for the boning, at least at one edge. So yes, I'm going to sew it to the top, finish it off, and then we can put the boning in and do the bottom edge. It's all finished, yay! I just need to lace it up, and I did put little star marks on the top. Because of the shape of this corset, it's quite hard to tell which is the top and which is the bottom, so now I know.